Hi there, this is Heather, Shutterbug 101. Today we'll be going over the Panasonic ZS200 point-and-shoot camera and all the buttons, doors, and menus. Let's get started. The Panasonic ZS200 point-and-shoot camera has a 1-inch 20 megapixel sensor that has the ability to shoot in RAW format and has a 15 times optical zoom. This camera has 49 focus points and fixed touchscreen, so you can tell the camera exactly where you want the focus to be, has a macro focus available from 3 centimeters away from your subject, and also has a viewfinder available to use in tough lighting situations. The ZS200 also has manual modes alongside its intelligent auto mode. It can take continuous photos at 10 frames per second and 30 frames per second on its 4K burst mode, has Wi-Fi, and 4K video. Today we'll be going over the buttons, doors, and menus to help you learn your way around this camera. Alright, so this is going to be the ZS200, okay? You may, if you are well versed in just looking at the models of cameras, you may find that the Panasonic point-and-shoots look extremely similar to Leica point-and-shoots. And you'll notice here that this is a Leica glass inside this point-and-shoot camera. So Leica and Panasonic do work closely together in that. I would say that this is going to be close to like the generic version of Leica, considering it's so expensive, and this is a fair price in comparison, especially with the sensor size. So it is something to consider there. So here on the lens you can see that it has a 3.3 to 6.4 aperture depending on where you're at in the zoom range between the 24 and 360 mark. That is going to display what the zoom is on this camera. Other than that, there's this really nice grip up front, so at least you feel like you have a good grip on this camera, but no other buttons or doors on the front of this guy. On the side here, you will see that we have one door labeled HDMI, which you can guess is going to have the HDMI port inside, which allows you to connect your camera up to a television set to show maybe like a slideshow of photos, an example of like what you're doing on screen, anything like that. It just allows you to blow up whatever's on this 3-inch screen to your television. And then of course we have our charging port. Now when you do purchase this camera, it does only come with the cord and wall charger because you charge the battery inside the camera for this guy. You can buy an external charger separately, but of course, it's extra money, so it's up to you and your preference. And then this is one side that the wrist strap can go into. You'll also notice that on the other side it has one here as well, so depending on your preference. You can also hook up a small neck strap to this because it is double-sided there, so you do have that option. Going to the bottom of the camera here, as you can see, again, our universal tripod mount. It's going to be on every camera. You'll see that we have a little speaker down here, so if you do any video, that's where it's going to play out of there. We have our little door here, so if you move this switch, it pops right open. This is where you're going to find your battery and your card slot. The card slot is spring-loaded, so you push down to take the card out. You never pry it up and wonder why the heck it's not working and force it, because it will break it. And you just, to close it, you switch the switch back. You're all set there. All right, going to the top of the camera. Now we're starting to get somewhere here. So we'll go ahead and we're going to start with our mode dial here. So we're going to start with IA. This is going to be intelligent auto. Cameras have come a really long way just in the last few years here. This intelligent auto is so smart that if you put it on there and you point it at a person, it's going to show a little face up in the corner of the screen showing, oh, portrait, let me change those settings for you. If you get really close to a subject, that 3 centimeters away from macro focus, it's going to show a little flower up on top indicating, oh, macro mode, let me do that for you. So Intelligent Auto is incredibly smart. So just getting to know this camera, if you feel a little intimidated before using your manual modes just yet, auto mode should be able to at least do most of the job for you. The next one here is going to be your P mode. This is going to stand for program. Program is going to be your first step off of auto and having more control of your pictures. This allows you to pick certain focusing settings, certain focusing points, allows you to change either shutter speed or aperture, depending on what you want to do, and the camera does everything else for you, so you still get a properly exposed image. So P mode is a great mode to be on, especially if auto is just not doing what you want. A mode is not auto. This is going to be your aperture mode. This controls the opening in the lens, how much light you let in versus, how much light you don't want to let in. So in low light situations, aperture mode can be really helpful. Also, it affects the effect of your photos. So when you have a low aperture number, like the 3.3 up here at its widest point, you're going to get a blurrier background and sharp foreground versus a high number like f16, which is going to give you sharpness throughout the image. So it does change that effect there. S is going to be your shutter speed priority. That's going to control how long you let the light in for. So if you want to capture still motion or show motion, that is what that mode's going to be for there. You have your manual mode, which is you have full control. The camera's not helping you out at all. So you'd probably want to stay off of this mode if you're primarily an auto shooter, so just something to keep in mind. We have our video mode or movie mode. Now, you don't have to be in movie mode in order to do a video. You could be in your intelligent auto mode, and in order to do video, all you have to do is push this red button. Push it once to start recording, push it again to stop recording. Pretty simple. The reason they have this movie mode here is you can adjust your intake volume with the mic, which is these two little dots right here are going to be your microphones, and other movie settings that you can change. You can be more specific with the frame rate and flicker reduction and whatnot. We have our C mode, which is going to be our custom mode. This is going to be for if you're shooting in a regularly lit environment, like a studio or a light box or something like that, where if you find the perfect setting, you can go, oh, let me just save it to my custom mode. So when you go outside, you take some pictures and then come back into that light box or studio setting. All you have to do is switch back to C, and it's where you had saved it in the first place, which is nice. You have your little squishy square symbol here, which is going to be our panoramic mode. You'll start from the left, move smoothly to the right. You won't go up and down with the camera because that's not how it works. And then you'll get that nice wide landscape shot. Your scene mode, which we're going to turn the camera on for this. So your on switch is right by your mode here. The lens does come out when it comes to turning it on, so be prepared for that. Don't block this lens at all. It's the most sensitive part of the camera. So when we go to the scene mode here, this is going to be essentially your auto presets. So it's going to be automatic, but you can be very specific in telling the camera, this is what I'm taking a picture of. So you have a couple different portrait modes. You have, distinct scenery. You have a couple sunset ones, glistening water, different nightscapes, handheld night shot, soft image of a flower, even food, animals, sports, black and white. So if you want to be a little bit more specific when it comes to shooting in auto, your scene mode is going to give you a lot of availability for that, a lot of tools there. Our next one is going to be our palette here, a little painter's palette. This is going to be different filters, if you will. So like sepia, different black and whites. One of my favorites here is actually going to be this one here, 1 point color. This allows you to pick one specific color shade out, and the rest of it's going to be black and white. So some other cameras are like, well, you can do red, green, yellow, blue. This camera allows you to point it at the scene and go, this specific purple. Or, you know, so like for a wedding, if their colors are red, black, and white, and it was like a really dark shade of red, you could select the dark shade of red out, and it's going to pop wherever it shows up, and everything else will be black and white. So it kind of looks really, really classy, which I really like there. You can also do this in post-processing in Photoshop, but why not do it in the camera for fun, right? And then, of course, we're back to our intelligent auto. So we have our on and off switch, like I said here. This is going to be our shutter button. So if you push halfway down to focus, you push all the way down to take a picture. And then you have your zoom ring right by the shutter button. So T for telephoto to zoom out, W for wide angle to go back. This, of course, is going to be your adjustment wheel, which on auto does absolutely nothing. In your P, A, S, and M mode, that's when it's going to change certain settings here at the bottom. So for P mode, it allows you to change either shutter speed or aperture. Right now, no matter whether I'm in 3.3 or f8, which apparently is the most you can close this this aperture here, it wants to take it at 1/60th of a second. So it all really depends on the light available, so keep that in mind. I'm going to go through the rest of the settings here on P mode because it's not going to gray anything out. In Intelligent Auto mode, you might find some of the menus and quick menus and shortcuts that we go through are not available in auto. So do keep that in mind if you're on auto and you're following this video and you're pushing certain buttons. You're like, what is she talking about? My camera's not doing anything. It's because you're in auto and it does not allow you to change those specific settings. So do keep that in mind when watching this video. Okay, so we're going to go to the back of the camera here. So as you can see, we have our fancy viewfinder. This is going to be fantastic for those tough lighting situations when you're really having a hard time seeing the LCD screen. It does have a sensor up here, so if you do bring your face close, it's going to activate the live viewfinder, and when you take your face away, it's going to pop right back to the screen, so it's something to keep in mind. We do have our function 4 button or our live viewfinder button. So if you did not want that sensor to be triggered, you're like, well, I only shoot with the viewfinder, or I only shoot with the back screen, I'll never use this viewfinder. If you hit this button here, it's going to primarily go to the viewfinder. Hit it again, it's going to just go to the LCD screen, so the sensor will be off. You push it a third time, it's going to go right back to auto. So it's all a matter of preference depending on what you want to do. Here we have our flash switch. Our flash is actually going to be sitting right on top here. It's going to be a pop-up flash. So if you activate that, there is our pop-up flash. You don't want it anymore. You put it right back down on the camera. We have our autofocus and auto exposure lock. So this is going to be, for example, if we had found a subject that maybe was moving, or you had something that was like perfectly lit, you found just the right metering for it, you could click this button and it's going to lock in your autofocus or your exposure, or both, depending on kind of what you were going for. So something to keep in mind there when it comes to, like backlit subjects, that sort of thing. We have our function 1 button, which at the moment is going to control our 4K burst mode. So if you hit this button, I wouldn't worry about these two in the middle. It's really just going to be that first one and the last one that you're going to worry about. So 4K off, and then you have 4K burst mode on. This is going to give you the ability to take pictures at 30 frames per second. Great for motion shots. I used it at a concert once. It was fantastic. You know, when they're moving around on stage, it can be really difficult to get a still photo. So it's definitely something to play with and keep in mind to use. But when you are not taking pictures of motion, landscape, a person posing, that sort of thing, you probably want to turn it off. On function 2, we have our post focus mode. This mode allows us to, as you can see here, for example, if I were to take this screenshot with this camera on post focus mode, you see how my hands are blurry right now and the camera's in focus. If I took this picture in post focus mode with this camera, I would then be able to go through the picture and go, oh, touch the hand. I want the hand to be in focus, not the camera. And after the fact that you take the picture, you can change the focus point. Is pretty neat. So I can imagine be helpful for macro shots. It can be helpful for like wedding photography, for when you're getting like that nice ring shot of both the bride and groom's rings. It's something fun to use. It can accidentally be turned on. I've had people take one of these on vacation. They don't realize the post focus mode is on, and they come back and go, hey, so I put my card in my computer and it doesn't show me anything but little videos, because post focus mode essentially just takes a little video, allows you to pick a focus point and then save your image. Very similar to how the 4K video does 30 frames per second, saves it as a video file, and then you can pick out the one that you want out of that video file. So if you accidentally turn this on, you take 200 pictures in post focus or your 4K burst mode without saving pictures, unfortunately, you do have to go through all 200 photos, select to save an image out of each file, which can be really irritating. So do keep in mind that if your camera is like taking multiple shots when you don't want it to, if it's taking a few seconds to take the picture, because in post focus mode it'll go beep, 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 and finish taking the picture because it's taking several. It's definitely something to check here. Make sure that when you access your 4K mode, it's off. When you access your post-focus mode, it's off. If it's still acting funny, just go ahead and reset your camera back to factory settings if you can't figure it out. And we will go over that here in a little bit. We have our playback mode, so if we hit this button, it's going to show what's on the memory card. Naturally, I don't have a memory card in there right now, so it's not really going to show anything. Also, your universal exit button is going to be your shutter button halfway down. It'll get right back into shooting mode, so something to keep in mind there. If these are going to be your shortcut buttons. So if you push up on this dial, it's going to be your exposure. So you can actually go darker, or you can go brighter without changing any major settings, if you just kind of need it a little bit brighter, a little bit darker. If you go to the right, that's going to be your white balance. I would personally keep it on AWB, that's going to be auto white balance. Cameras today are really good at determining what's supposed to be white. As you can see here, my camera's doing really well determining this is a white matte, and just how fair my skin is. Yes, I'm extremely white. I've come to accept this. And then you have your focus modes. So if you push to the left, you have autofocus, autofocus macro, macro zoom, which allows you to get even closer, which is insane. And then you have full-on manual focus to have full control. So just general everyday photography is just going to be autofocus. That should be fine. If you push down, it's going to give you your drive mode. So the single square is going to be one single picture when you click and hold your shutter button down. The burst mode is going to be 10 frames per second. When you click and hold your button down, it's going to save every image. You have your 4K photo burst mode. You can also get from here and the function 1 button. That, of course, is going to give you your 30 frames per second all in one video file. And you can pick out in one video file which one you would like. The post focus mode. And then you have your timer as well. We have our menu button, which we'll go over here last. We're going to cover these two buttons at the bottom first. DISP is going to stand for display, so that's going to change the way that you see your screen here. So as you can see, it has a level, just black. This one is probably the most basic that I would keep, just because when I have a card in here, it'll tell me how many pictures I have left. It tells me my battery level. Those are things that I really like to keep in mind when taking pictures. That way I'm not caught off guard and going, what's going on? We have our trash can button right here, which in our play mode will delete images. But if you notice down here below it, it says Q menu. this is going to activate our quick menu in shooting mode, which is what we're in right now. So if I hit this button, it's actually going to bring up our quick menu, which allows us to change aspects that you might want to change on a regular basis. So you really shouldn't ever have to go into your actual menu and be stuck in there and get lost in there. So just to go over what these offer, and just as a reminder, if you're in auto mode, a lot of these are going to be grayed out because the camera is controlling it. Up here is going to be your photo style, so you can choose like vivid photos for vivid color, black and white, scenery, that sort of stuff. I really just worry about doing it in Photoshop, adjusting any colors there. You have your flash, which right now it does say that flash is off because we don't have it popped up. But you can change it so when it is popped up, you can go, I want it to do it all the time. You can do red eye, that sort of thing. You have your video quality here, depending if you wanted 4K or HD. We have our photo quality here for the ratio and the JPEGs. When you're taking JPEG images, you always want to be in large, just to be prepared for any prints that you might want to make down the line. You can choose either JPEG, RAW and JPEG, or just RAW. We have our autofocus settings here, how it's going to autofocus. AFS is going to be autofocus single, where it focuses and locks on a subject. It's going to be for static images. The AFC is going to be autofocus continuous. That's going to continually allow it to focus as a subject moves, so it's going to be for movement. And autofocus flexible AFF is going to be autofocus auto, where you're letting the camera determine if it's AFS or AFC, and it'll kind of switch back and forth. You have your focus area where it's focusing. So if you want to use the full 49-point area as tracking, it has face recognition, different zones, or specific point, depending on what you want to do with that. You have your metering mode, which will meter where it's taking the light from. Your camera is going to meter for 18% gray because your camera sees in black and white, not color. So depending on where it's taking the light from will show how the light's balanced. So this first one is going to consider the entire image. The one in the middle is going to be center metering, so whatever's in the center, which is what I have my camera on now because most of the time I have my camera centered. The last one's going to be spot metering, so it would be for if I wanted my camera off to the side here and I wanted it properly lit, then I would do it to spot metering, but like I said, center metering works for me. We have our exposure again, which again you can get to by pushing up on your dial here. ISO, which you can set a limit to your ISO in the menu, which we'll go over here in a little bit. That way you don't have to worry about it, but it's essentially sensitivity to light. And then of course we have our white balance again, which again you can get by pushing right on your dial. And that covers the quick menu there. So you can just exit. We're going to go ahead and dive into the menu next. And a lot of these I'm going to pretty much skip over because a lot of them are in your quick menu and you don't really need to know about it. You have your aspect ratio, your picture size, your quality, which we went over in the quick menu, your autofocus. Right, so then you have your sensitivity, which is ISO. Same thing in your quick menu, autofocus mode, where it's autofocusing, photo style, filter settings, keep your color space on RGB, metering. I would keep your eye dynamic, eye resolution, keep all of that off. Red eye removal doesn't hurt to keep it on, especially if you're taking pictures of people. ISO auto upper limit. There you go. So I would do your limit to like 800 or 1600 on this guy. So ISO auto upper limit, keep it on auto. You have minimum shutter speed. So if you wanted to set a shutter speed and it controlled the ISO, you could do that on here. So you could set it to where, hey, you don't want it to go, like any lower than 1/250th of a second. You don't want it to go any slower than that. You could. You have long shutter noise reduction, which is fine. Diffraction compensation, I mean, it's up to you if you want to keep that on. That is going to keep it from basically distorting any images, like when it comes to buildings or anything like that. Your stabilizer, you want to generally keep that on unless this is on a tripod. Eye zoom, keep it off. Digital zoom, you want to make sure that's off. Burst rate, 4K photo, self timer. You can do time lapse shots. You can do stop motion animation. You can do silent mode. So if you're at a wedding, you're trying to be respectful, something like that, you put this on silent mode. Typically, you want your shutter type to be like electronic. You can also put it into manual. But if you want to control that minimum shutter speed, it's got to be electronic. If you want bracketing on or off, HDR I would keep off unless you're doing, if you're doing Photoshop, I would keep it off. If you don't plan on doing Photoshop, yeah, give it a try, why not? Multiple exposures, and then we're back to the top there. So going to the next menu, this is going to be your movie menu. It's essentially going to be exactly the same as the photo taking menu. It's just going to be revolved around movies. So, you can access all that through your quick menu as well. Here going into our custom menu, you can change your exposure, if you want your shutter autofocus on where you push halfway down. Half press release, don't do it. I've had people get really frustrated with this. This will happen where if you half press down on your shutter button, it's going to take a picture and you're not ready. Quick autofocus, sure, why not? Eye sensor autofocus, sure, why not? You can do pinpoint autofocus setting, so you can be really specific with these. Autofocus and manual focus, so if you wanted to autofocus and then adjust with the screen here, you can turn that on. Manual focus assist. Function button set, so maybe if you don't find that you're going to use your post focus mode very much or your 4K mode, you can actually assign these to whatever you want, anything that's listed with the FN. You can do your quick menu, ring dial set, operation lock setting, your touch settings, dial guide, monochrome live view if you wanted to see everything in black and white to see a little bit more value. You want to see your peaking or your histogram, your center marker, your grid lines, that sort of thing. Your record area. Like I said, most of these you won't find that you're going to change very much. So nothing I would really worry about too much. Okay, going into just our regular settings here. We have like online manual, you can set your clock, travel date, you can turn on your Wi-Fi or Bluetooth from here. You can turn the beep on and off, live viewfinder display speed, change things for the brightness of the viewfinder or the LCD screen here, TV connection, your language. It's all just really the hardcore settings of the camera itself. Format is something that I definitely want to go over because a lot of people don't know what format is. It's really important to format your cards before you go on a trip, before you go to a new event, that sort of thing, as long as the pictures already on the card are backed up to your computer or an external source where they're safe, because formatting is going to permanently delete any pictures that you have on there. The reason that you want to format is when you go and you delete by the trash can button, it essentially just takes the picture and puts it in this invisible recycling bin. So you don't see the picture, but the data is still there. And after so much time of doing that, you can get a corrupt card, you can get a virus, it'll destroy future images. So just to be safe, when you format your card, it's completely resetting it to how you purchased it. Right? So going to the other settings here, you have My Menu setting. This will allow you to pick certain things out of these menus and create your own menu here. So you're like, well, Heather said I'm not going to touch any of these things, but maybe I want access to reset and format and maybe some other autofocus ones. Who knows? You can customize your own little menu so you don't even have to dig through here. Or if it's something that's not on your quick menu, at least you know it's right in this menu here. Also, on this menu, because I think I skipped right over it, you do have reset. So if you do get stuck, there's no one that can help figure it out what's going on with your camera because, you know, technology can be complicated. Just resetting, it's not going to hurt your camera. It's just going to reset it to how you purchased it and, you know, help you start over, and it should clear out your issue. And of course, the last menu here is going to be our playback menu. So this is going to show us, like, you know, if you want to protect your pictures, you want to do a slideshow, you want to do, you know, a text stamp, resizing, cropping, all this in camera. I would not really play with these. I would do all that in Photoshop personally, but it's up to you. Ooh, camera turned off. Anywho, that pretty much sums up everything about this camera. If you have any questions about this camera, or you have a camera that you would like me to cover that I haven't covered yet, please let me know in the comments below, and I'll make sure to add it to my list. Until then, keep your eye out for inspiration, Shutterbugs. Bye.